for. So it'll be another great opportunity for you to kind of come to that talk, pick their brain with your questions, like come with a lot of questions because they're the best people to answer them. So yeah, I mean, I hope like you think like me that this is an incredible agenda and that's it's an opportunity you do not want to miss. And personally, I would really love to see you there if you can come out there in person and, you know, just have network, have conversations. So yeah, excited. Hope to see you there. Back to you, Vincenzo.
Nice, amazing. Thank you so much. So sorry, we forgot to start recording. So for those watching the video, I think we missed just half of your message. So we'll see how we can do some magic to fix that. So cool. Then for those attending KubeCon, please nice enjoy, have a great time. And in case you have any question about BackstageCon or KubeCon, feel free to drop a message in the chat. Cool. Let's move on to the next topic. Release highlights. Backstage 1.32 is out. Patrick, please tell us everything.
All right. Yep. Released yesterday. Just calling out a couple of breaking changes, the main ones in this release. If you are using VMware auth, any of the deprecated Backstage CLI commands, the new frontend system, or API reports, then there are some breaking changes that you need to pay attention to. If you don't use any of those things, hopefully you should be all good. Now, one important thing I want to call out is a change in the auth backend. There is a sign-in resolver where you pick out the local part of an email to identify users. If you're using the sign-in resolver, we now recommend that you use the new allowed domains option that's available for that resolver. You can find how to use that in the documentation for sign-in resolvers. And it's also highlighted there that if you're using this resolver, you should be using this option. This just ensures that all your logged in users are coming from the email domains that you expect. We also have, in most places, gotten rid of the alpha. Well, not gotten rid of, actually. You have the option to use both, but you no longer need to use /alpha when you are installing things for the new backend system. All of the core plugins, modules, the only exception is the event backend modules for GitHub and GitLab, because they are exporting multiple modules and we need to figure out how to deal with that. But everything else in the meantime, you can now install using the main entry point. You no longer need to have /alpha. We will get rid of the /alpha endpoint in the future, maybe already in the next release. So go ahead and update now just to reduce friction of work in future version updates. Then more quickfire, we got a couple of improvements being shipped out. We got scaffolder UI improvements, just especially around the editor and how you find the template editor, browse the have information available as you're using it, and also a bit of guidance for how to save your templates. Oh, and there's a new way to create a new template as well. So you no longer need to create the template locally on disk. It can now help you create the template on disk as a starting point. Then the events backend now supports scale deployments. It will use the database for communication. This only supports Postgres at the moment, but hopefully the majority of you are using that. So yeah, if you're using the events backend, you will now have events flowing across plugins. This really hasn't been an issue or the requirement so far. This really just unlocks new usages of the events backend, and in particular the notification and signals backend that are up and coming, and we're looking to get included by default in new Backstage installations as well. Then a couple of additions to the CLI. We got a new success cache option that can help you cache successful test and lint runs across CLI runs. We got experimental support for RSPack, which we are trying out internally, and it is really speedy compared to Webpack, and it seems like a complete drop-in replacement as well. And then we also have some metadata additions. When you're publishing packages, there's now some automatic metadata added to highlight what features a package exports when it's published to NPM. And lastly, we have a new selection of testing utilities that can be useful for writing tests. So API mocks for front and backend, or in particular in front-end packages, we have a new catalog API mock, which is very useful if you're writing anything that interacts with the catalog in any way, and the catalog API. So you can provide a selection of entities, and you get essentially the full implementation of the catalog API with filtering capabilities and so on as a mock, which is really nice to use in test instead of kind of just mock functions. All right, that's it for 132.
That was a very long change log. Nice. Thank you. I see no questions so far. I see Benjamin has already migrated to 32, so works great. That's good. We had a patch today. That was also good. Nice. Yeah, in case anyone has any question, feel free to drop a message in the chat. Yeah, thank you so much, Patrick, and yeah, see you around. All right, then on to the third topic on the list, the Backstage Yarn plugin. And yeah, this is a fantastic tool, something that simplifies the process of upgrading Backstage. But we have tried internally, it works amazing, but I will let Mike share all the details about this new tool. Mike, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks, Vincenzo. How are you doing?
Over to you. All good, all good.
Good. Hi, folks. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Mike Lewis, at MT Lewis on GitHub, and I work at Spotify on Backstage things, open source, internal, commercial stuff. And I also love Backstage as somebody who used Backstage internally at Spotify for a while before starting to work on it. I've seen the amazing stuff that it can do for engineering organizations. So I want to talk today about this Backstage Yarn plugin, what it is, what problems it aims to solve, and show you how it works, and also show you how you can adopt it if you want to. So let's start with the problems. Next slide, please, Vincenzo.
Do you want to share your slide? Is it or
oh yeah, I can take over
I
sharing
can
if you
go
like.
with my
Yeah,
slide. Yeah,
no, that's fine. I can.
Up to you.
I'll just switch over and share.
Um,
Stand by. Going to take over sharing now.
No problem.
I'm going to end up sharing a Chrome window, which is fine. I'm just going to do that. Okay, cool. So the Backstage Yarn plugin. So two problems it aims to solve. The first problem is, so as somebody who does the updates for some of our internal Backstage mono repos once in a while, I'm very familiar with this Backstage upgrade helper tool that I'm sure you've all seen, and it's super useful. Thanks to Vincenzo. Actually, this is a tool that really helps to see the differences between the old and new versions of Backstage. But one of the things I didn't like about it was all of these diffs, all of these different packages have version changes for every release of Backstage, and I kind of don't care, right? What I care about is that I'm going from version 131.3 of Backstage to version 132. So a lot of these diffs are kind of noise for me, and particularly that's kind of frustrating when there are meaningful diffs in here too. So along with all of the different version bumps, there's a couple of significant changes to the way that like a given plugin gets wired up in Create App, and I actually want to know about that. So putting those diffs front and center. And this applies not just to the upgrade helper, but of course to the pull requests that I'm raising when I'm performing the Backstage upgrade on the mono repo that I'm working in. Makes it harder for that PR to be reviewed, and really it means that those version bumps are kind of a rubber stamp for people looking at the change, right? They don't know whether the package JSONs have been changed in the right way. They're just going, oh yeah, okay, cool. So there's some changes here, including a bunch of package JSON changes, which are probably right. So we're just going to say, yeah, cool, which is never good. So that's problem one. Problem two, I'm sure you've all done this. I'm working on a feature, and as part of that feature, I need to do something new in a package, and I need to add a dependency on a Backstage package. And I want to be a good citizen, so I want to add the Backstage package that matches the package version that matches the current release of Backstage that's installed in that mono repo. So, like, what do I put here? What do I put in this value? Well, if I want to be a really good citizen, I have to go and like look at the release and figure out what release I'm on and figure out what version of that package fits into that release and put that there. I guess I could not do that because the upgrade helper will sort of fix it for me later. But yeah, it's another fiddly thing about dealing with Backstage package versions. And I think like all of this comes down to a bit of a realization for me that with the Backstage JSON file, which if you haven't come across it, is a file in the repo that just tells you what version of Backstage is currently installed, and all the package JSONs in a given Backstage monorepo, we're actually kind of duplicating information, right? I was looking at this version and I was thinking, well, actually, this is all you need to know. If you want to know what version of Backstage someone's on, this is the important bit of information. They're on Backstage version 131.1. So what can we do to get rid of all of those package JSON bits of information and just defer to this version instead? I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about like the fact that I'm going to stay on this slide for a bit longer, thinking about the fact that often we'll use the Yarn Workspace plugin to replace versions of packages in monorepos with a reference that says, hey, just use the version of this package from the workspace. So you end up with strings, if you haven't seen them, like workspace : caret in package JSONs that automatically get replaced during publishing for you, but within the monorepo give you just a reference to the package in the workspace. So I started thinking, what if we could leverage something like that in Backstage? And that's where the Backstage Yarn plugin came from. So this is a little sort of overview in one slide of what the Backstage Yarn plugin does. So looking at the screenshot on the left-hand side, we have a copy of Backstage JSON. This is as it always has been, or as it has been for a while in Backstage monorepos. You have a string with the version that points to the current version of Backstage. The difference is, in this little monorepo that we're sort of reflecting in this slide, we also have the Backstage Yarn plugin installed. So we've got in our Yarn RC YAML a reference to this plugin Backstage CommonJS file, which has come from a place on the internet. And that does some extra things when you run Yarn commands like yarn install or yarn pack or yarn add. And then in our package JSONs, all of these individual version strings, which correspond to the right version for that release, for this release. And again, that's the duplicated information that I was talking about, go away. And instead of them, we have Backstage : caret. And what this is saying is, while you're working in this monorepo for this package, use whatever version is in Backstage JSON for this package. So like go to this Backstage JSON, get the version of Backstage, figure out what this package version should be corresponding to that release, and use that. When you're publishing, use caret before that version to repopulate the right version into your package JSON that gets released. This is only for working within a monorepo. If you're publishing packages, these versions don't leak out. So that's the whole thing, really. That's what it does. So I want to give you a demo now and show you how you can use it, and then we'll jump to a slide which shows you how to adopt it, and then we've got time for questions. So let me switch what I'm sharing. I'm going to share my VS Code instance. And anybody with their audio on, how's the text size here? Is this relatively visible, or do I need to make it bigger? Good. Okay, cool.
That's good.
Great. So I'm in a demo repo right now. This is literally the result of running Create App. So there's nothing custom in here whatsoever. The Yarn plugin is not installed. Everything is at its default. So if you go and run npx Backstage Create App at latest, this is exactly what you'll get in your local instance. And I have to do a few steps here to adopt the Yarn plugin. So step number one is importing the plugin. So this is a built-in system in Yarn for importing plugins if you haven't played with it before. So I'm going to run yarn plugin import, and I'm going to go into my history to grab the URL. This is a URL in versions.backstage.io, which points at a plugin bundle for this Yarn plugin. And this is, just to be very clear, a different concept from Backstage plugins, right? Yarn plugins are their own separate plugin extensibility system. So I'm going to run that. It's pulled the plugin. It has put it in place. So if I run git status now, you'll see we have changed yarnrc.yaml, and we've got a new plugins directory in Yarn, which has just this new minified plugin bundle. And if we look at the yarnrc.yaml, you can see that we have a new plugins entry, as you saw in the slide, which points at that plugin bundle and the place where it came from. So that's it. The plugin's now installed, but we haven't changed anything about the repo yet. We just have a plugin available to us, and it's not going to do anything until we have those Backstage versions floating around package JSONs. So we can do that one by one, and I'll show you that first, but we can also do it at scale, and I'll show you that too. So I'm going to start by committing this stuff just so that we can carry on seeing diffs. Add yarn plugin, so that's done. So now if I go to, let's say, the app package JSON, and I take one of these dependencies, sort of picked randomly, and change this version to backstage caret, and then I rerun yarn, you see nothing interesting and different is happening here as far as yarn's concerned. It's just running yarn for us. When we have finished, if we look at the diff, we'll see that there's the diff that we made. And then in the yarn lock file, instead of the plugin API docs dependency being resolved as an NPM version, it's now resolved via backstage 131.1. And in this case, it looks like we did have a version mismatch. So it has changed the version for us. In normal terms, when you're doing an upgrade or when you're staying on the same version, you wouldn't see any version changes. But in general, like this is just performing that upgrade for us. So that's all done for one version change. That's how you do it. But of course, we have a lot of versions here, and we don't want to be managing that migration one by one. So let's go and clean that up and get rid of all these changes. And instead of doing it that way, we're going to run the upgrade helper. The versions bump command. I always get those two names turned around. So backstage CLI versions bump. So we're going to let this upgrade run. And what this is going to do, you'll see, even before it's finished running the yarn installation, it's going to flip all of these versions to backstage caret versions for you. So now it's just migrated the whole repo to use these versions. And the only exception here, you'll see all backstage packages that start with @backstage have been migrated to use this thing. The only exception will be any packages that are no longer published in backstage releases. So for example, the old backend tasks package wouldn't be managed by this plugin because it's no longer included in releases, and it's assumed that you'll be manually managing that package if you want to continue using it. All other plugins get upgraded for you. So that's all done now. Across the whole repo, all of these versions are managed with backstage versions, and we can now commit that result. Of course, just to say, the versions bump command will only do this if it detects that the yarn plugin is installed. So all of this system is entirely opt-in. If you don't install the yarn plugin, the versions bump command carries on doing what it always has. This is just an extra step that it performs if it detects that you've opted into this behavior by installing the yarn plugin. And similarly, if we want to opt out of it and migrate back, you can uninstall the yarn plugin, rerun versions bump, and it'll migrate you back the other way. But going forward, we're now in a situation where I'm sure you'll see, we can now change the version of Backstage just by changing the version in here and rerunning yarn. And all of the resolutions, all of the version changes will happen for us. We don't have to worry about different individual packages. And when we go to add our new dependency on core components or whatever it is in here, we no longer have to think about what the right version is to match the Backstage release. We just whack it in with backstage :caret, and it's going to do the right thing. And again, I think I mentioned this already, but just to reiterate, if you're running a monorepo where you publish packages, this is a viable solution for you too, and we use it in our internal monorepos that publish. What happens during npm pack is, again, it will flip these back to the concrete npm versions that correspond to the release. That is the end of the demo portion of this. I have one more slide to show you, which is the instructions for adopting, if you want to do so. And then I will take a look at the questions. Okay, I see there's a couple in the chat. So here's the slide. I'll leave it on the screen for a second in case you want a screenshot. There are docs coming for this. There's a PR that just got merged in Backstage. So next time the docs get deployed, that new documentation section will appear in the README for the plugin and in the Keeping Backstage Updated page that I'm sure you're all fairly familiar with. So as you can see, it's a 4-step, or well, 4 steps including a Tadar emoji. So 3 steps. You have to be updated to Backstage 131.1. Then you run that yarn plugin import that you saw me run, and then the versions bump command will do the rest for you. Of course, all of this stuff should be committed to your repo. So once you've imported the plugin, you should commit that just like I did. I think that's it. I'm going to switch to looking at the chat and see if there's any questions. Also, feel free to unmute if you want to ask questions live so that it's not just me talking and talking all the time.
This is great. I see one from Corey. Is there a way to override the change to backstage caret for a single dependency? if you want to be on a version of that dependency that doesn't align with the current Backstage version?
So that's not supported today in the plugin. So firstly, if you change the version away from Backstage Carrot to a specific concrete version, that will work absolutely fine. So this Yarn plugin is only going to have an effect on packages where you have set the version to Backstage Carrot. The only thing that won't work well, though, with this requirement is that the Yarn plugin currently assumes that if you have the versions bump command assumes that if you have the Yarn plugin installed, you want to use it for all of your Backstage packages. So happy to take this on as a feature request, but today it's a sort of kind of all or nothing situation from the perspective only of the versions bump command.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly as Ben says in the response.
Exactly. There's another question from Philip, but this is more related to the Backstage community plugins. If there was a plan for a plugin to declare which Backstage version they are currently support, I think this is not kind of related to the Yarn plugin. I think there was a proposal for that. We haven't planned anything so far, but yeah, we are thinking about it, like to specify being able to specify some version their plugin are compatible with. Yeah. Mike,
Yep.
Since I don't see any other question, I have one for you.
Okay, great.
I mean, you created this, and I think like the first pull request was created in last April. I don't remember. I want to ask, could you share with us how did you came up with this solution, with this idea?
Sure. Yes. I mean, it's pretty much what I said when going through the slides here. Really, it was just like yet another upgrade PR, yet another kind of version or package that I was adding to a dependency list, and thinking like, I'm seeing all of these workspace dependencies in open source, and I don't get that same, like it's when you're in open source, it's nice because you don't have to think about what version of catalog backend you depend on. You just Benjamin, yes, it is open source. When you're working with Backstage packages inside the Backstage monorepo, you just put workspace carrot all over the place. And that's nice because you then don't have to think about what version of that package you're depending on. And adopters using Backstage packages don't get that same quality of life without this plugin. They have to think about what version of the package they are adopting more than they have to. So it was a combination of sort of recognizing that pain and spotting the fact that the workspace tools plugin, although it's now been incorporated into Yarn, used to be a separate plugin that you had to install to manage these workspace dependencies, and therefore recognizing that the Yarn plugin system had to support this kind of behavior. And then I think I was supposed to be working on a talk, and instead of working on, I was speaking at QCon in London, and instead of preparing the slides, I wrote this plugin. Yeah, I think it was the working on the demo repo for that talk that kind of seeded me working on the plugin. By the way, there's one more thing that I can show that Vincenzo and I actually worked on last week that I didn't get around to mentioning in the demo, which is the upgrade helper. So the upgrade helper is something that I kind of started and led with when I was showing you this stuff. And here's the original diff that we were talking about at the start of the presentation with all of the different versions getting changed. So Vincenzo and I wanted this to work nicely with the Yarn plugin. So you'll see if you click on the settings icon in the corner of the upgrade helper and you tick use Yarn plugin, this will actually reload and it will show you the diff as if you have the Yarn plugin installed both before and after the upgrade. And then you can see the more material diffs. And actually this is a kind of a good example because it shows that in CreateApp, there's been some meaningful dependency removals, which maybe would have faded into the noise with all of the Backstage version changes. But because we've got rid of all those Backstage version changes, now it's obvious that the backend example backend no longer depends on Winston and no longer depends on these types packages. And same goes for the front end. We've removed React use. That wouldn't have been as obvious without this change. But you can see that other than that, there's a couple of this looks like there's been a tweak to the Docker file. And this is the key thing. There's been a change to the Backstage JSON, which drives all of those other changes to dependency versions. All right, that's it.
Nice. Thank you so much. Any other question for Mike? Please drop in the chat or unmute yourself. Otherwise, yeah, this is a great tool. Hopefully we can, make it default in the future. I guess this is like it's the goal if this is the value that the plugin provides. Nice.
Yeah, I think the sort of, I think the general thing that I'd be wary of is ever making it a requirement. It's always something that we'd look to be opt-in, or at the very least opt-out. But yeah, making it more of a default behavior in the future is certainly a possibility from my perspective.
Nice. Thank you so much, Mike. Cool. Then we can dive into the last session, which is about Q&A. So if you have any question, please, this is the time. The floor is yours. Drop in the message in the chat or unmute yourself. All right, pausing for a second. Cool. I don't think I see any other questions. So yeah, I think we can wrap up the meeting here. Thank you so much for joining. And I think the next community session is scheduled after KubeCon. So for those of you attending KubeCon, feel free. Sorry, is there any other? Yeah. Sorry, there is a message
one just landed.
Here it is. We noticed some major performance issues with large catalog issues. So I wanted to highlight the post at the end. Please take a look. Is this something we have looked into it? Patrick or the others, I think. Yeah.
Yes, we have discussed this one a couple of times. I'm not up to date with the latest updates though.
Mm-hmm. But will you see that the right place for discussing this will be like the framework SIG?
Yes.
That's more low level. So
there we can we can dive into
it and prepare
details
about this. Yeah. So if you want to talk about this, I think the framework SIG is the right place. Cool. I pause for 30 seconds to see if there is any other question. Nice. Okay, good. Cool. Otherwise, as I said, for those of you attending KubeCon, enjoy KubeCon, have fun, and yeah, see you in the next community session. Thank you so much for your time and have a great day. Bye.